everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. You know how much we all love geeking out about the latest health trends, and today, well, we're diving into the world of trendy diets.
Ooh, yeah.
The ones promising, those like miracle results? I mean, I'm sure you've seen them all over the place.
Absolutely.
And you've actually sent us some really interesting research on this. So
Yeah.
I gotta say, I'm a little skeptical.
Healthy skepticism is always a good starting point.
It is. It is. So let's break it all down together and see what the real deal is with these diets.
Let's do it. Where should we start?
Well, how about we kick things off with keto?
Keto.
I mean, it's like it's everywhere these days. Everyone's talking about it.
It really is. It's definitely having a moment.
Yeah, and I even tried it myself at one point. I have to admit though, that whole like bacon for every meal thing, it wasn't really doing it for me long term.
Yeah, that's understandable. I think a lot of people find that the initial excitement of keto wears off pretty quickly, especially when you realize it's not just about loading up on bacon.
Right, exactly.
There's a whole science behind it.
So break it down for us. What's the actual science of keto?
Okay, so basically keto works by forcing your body into a state called ketosis, where it starts burning fat for fuel instead of carbohydrates.
Okay.
And this happens by producing ketones, which are these like alternative energy sources.
Interesting. So is it kind of like switching your car from gasoline to electric?
Exactly. That's a great analogy. Instead of running on carbs, your body is now powered by fat.
Okay, I'm starting to get it. But
Yeah.
then why do people lose weight so quickly on keto?
Well, that's where things get a little tricky.
Yeah.
The initial weight loss people rave about, a lot of it is actually water weight, not necessarily fat loss.
Oh, really?
Yeah. When you drastically cut carbs, your body uses up its stored glycogen, and glycogen loves to hold on to water. So that's what makes those first few pounds vanish so quickly.
Ah, that makes sense. It's like a temporary dehydration effect.
It's exactly.
Okay, so the initial weight loss might be a bit of a mirage, but what about the long term? Can people really sustain this way of eating like forever, avoiding bread and pasta and all those things?
Well, a 2021 study in Nature Medicine actually looked into this, and they found that a whopping 60% of people who tried keto gained all the weight back within a year.
Wow, 60%. That's a pretty significant number.
It is. It shows just how difficult it is to stick with keto long term,
Yeah.
which ultimately leads to that yo-yo dieting effect that we want to avoid.
Yeah, yo-yo dieting is definitely not a recipe for success.
Definitely not. It can be pretty damaging both physically and mentally.
And then there's that whole dirty keto thing, right? Where people think they can just load up on processed meats and cheese and still be healthy because they're technically in ketosis.
Ugh, yes. Dirty keto. It drives me crazy.
Yeah, it just seems like it would be terrible for your heart.
It completely misses the point of a balanced, nutritious diet.
Yeah.
Imagine trying to survive solely on greasy burgers and bacon. Sure, you might be in ketosis, but your body is screaming for all those vital nutrients from fruits, veggies, and whole grains.
Right. It's like you're getting the keto part, but you're missing out on all the other good stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, so keto, it's not the magic bullet it's often made out to be, but what about gluten-free? Everyone seems to be on that bandwagon these days.
The gluten-free is huge, but it's important to make a distinction here.
Okay.
For people with celiac disease or gluten sensitivity, going gluten-free is essential. It's not a trend. Their bodies have an immune reaction to gluten, which can seriously damage their digestive system.
Right, it's a legitimate medical condition.
Exactly. But for the majority of people without those conditions.
It's become more of a lifestyle choice than a medical necessity.
Right. And all those promised benefits like weight loss and increased energy.
Yeah, do those actually hold up?
Well, a 2019 meta-analysis actually found no real evidence to support those claims for people who don't have a medical reason to avoid gluten.
So those gluten-free cookies and cakes that are marketed as healthier indulgences, they might not actually be doing us any favors.
Often they're not. Many gluten-free processed foods are loaded with sugar and fat to make up for the lack of gluten. Plus, you risk missing out on those essential nutrients found in whole grains.
So it's like thinking you're being healthy by choosing a gluten-free donut over a regular one. It's still a donut.
Exactly. It's all about looking beyond those buzzwords and reading those labels carefully.
Okay, so maybe not all gluten-free products are created equal. But how about we move on to something that always makes me chuckle a little bit, juice cleanses.
Oh, yeah.
It's like hitting the reset button on your body, right?
That's the idea. But here's the thing.
Okay.
Our bodies are already equipped with this amazing built-in detoxification system.
So we're like walking, talking detox machines already.
Precisely. Your liver and kidneys are constantly working to filter out toxins. You don't need a juice cleanse for that.
So those expensive juice bottles are basically just a marketing gimmick?
Pretty much. And on top of that, those juice cleanses often lack essential nutrients. It's like trying to fuel your body on sugar water.
Yeah, that doesn't sound very sustainable.
It's not. A 2020 study in the Journal of Clinical Nutrition found that any weight loss from juice cleanses is mostly water weight and muscle mass, which, guess what, comes right back once you start eating normally.
So it's just a temporary illusion of weight loss.
Exactly. And it can actually be harmful in the long run because you're depriving your body of the nutrients it needs.
Okay, juice cleanses debunked. All right, let's shift gears and talk about clean eating. I've definitely fallen into this trap myself, trying to eat super healthy, avoiding anything processed. But sometimes it just feels like I'm restricting myself way too much.
I think a lot of people can relate to that. It's great to focus on whole, unprocessed foods, but it can easily become an obsession. Have you ever heard of orthorexia?
I have, but to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what it is.
It's basically when healthy eating goes too far and the fear of unclean foods starts to control your life. One example we see a lot is the demonization of dairy. People cutting it out, completely fearing inflammation. But a 2022 study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition actually showed that moderate dairy intake is good for bone health.
So those Instagram influencers swearing off all dairy might actually be doing themselves more harm than good.
It's all about balance, not demonizing entire food groups. What are your thoughts on all of this so far?
I'm starting to see a pattern here. These trendy diets, they offer quick fixes, but they just don't seem sustainable in the long run.
That's a great observation.
And they can even have some negative consequences.
Absolutely.
Maybe it's not about finding the perfect diet, but about creating a healthier relationship with food in general.
I think you're onto something there. It's about shifting our focus from restriction and deprivation to nourishment and enjoyment.
Yeah, and finding what truly works for our individual bodies and lifestyles.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to nutrition.
Well said. All right. We've covered a lot of ground already, but there's still so much more to explore. So let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back and dive into the psychology of dieting.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it. It's fascinating. All these trendy diets, they keep popping up time and again, promising like easy results.
Yeah.
But really, they often prey on our insecurities. That desire for a quick fix.
Yeah, it's like they're tapping into that part of us that just wants that like magic solution.
Totally.
Especially, in this world where everything is instant gratification.
Right.
We see all those images of perfect bodies.
Yeah.
We're constantly told we need to achieve that like right now.
Absolutely. And the marketing for these diets is so clever.
Oh, yeah.
All those buzzwords, detox, clean, fat burning.
Yeah.
They sound appealing, but they often lack any real scientific backing.
It's true. It's all about creating that sense of urgency.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to miss out if you don't jump on the bandwagon now.
Right.
Like, right now.
Right. Exactly. And they often use those testimonials and before and after photos.
Yeah.
Which, while they might be real,
Yeah.
they don't really represent the average person's experience.
Right.
And it's important to remember that everyone's body is different.
It is. What works for one person might not work for another.
Exactly.
So it's really about tuning out all that noise.
Yes.
Focusing on what truly matters.
Absolutely.
Nourishing our bodies with a variety of nutrient-rich foods.
Yes.
Staying hydrated.
Yes.
Moving our bodies in ways that feel good.
That's what it's all about.
Those are the fundamentals of a healthy lifestyle.
Right.
It's about building those sustainable habits.
Yeah.
Not just following a restrictive diet for a few weeks and then falling off the wagon.
Exactly.
Speaking of falling off the wagon, let's talk about the mental and emotional side of dieting.
Okay.
Because these trendy diets, I feel like they can really mess with our heads.
They absolutely can. The constant focus on what you can and can't eat can be incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
And it often leads to feelings of guilt and shame.
Right. It's like we're setting ourselves up for failure from the start.
Yeah.
Because let's be real, who can stick to a super restrictive diet forever?
Nobody.
Yeah.
And that's why these diets so often backfire. You might lose weight initially,
Right.
but then you end up feeling so deprived.
Yeah.
You ultimately binge or give up altogether,
Right.
leading to weight regain and a damaged relationship with food.
It's like this vicious cycle that can be so hard to break.
It really can. It's important to remember that food is meant to be enjoyed.
Yes.
It's not the enemy.
I love that food is not the enemy.
It's fuel for our bodies.
Yeah.
It should be a source of pleasure and connection.
I love that We need to shift our mindset away from that restriction and deprivation
Absolutely.
and move more towards nourishment and enjoyment.
Yes, and that's where mindful eating comes in.
Mindful eating. Tell me more about that. I've heard the term, but I'm not entirely sure what it means.
So mindful eating is about paying attention to your body's cues
Okay.
and eating with intention.
Okay.
Slowing down, savoring each bite,
Okay.
noticing how different foods make you feel, both physically and emotionally.
So it's not just about what you eat, but how you eat.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's about being present with your food,
Okay.
appreciating the experience of eating.
That sounds so much more enjoyable than just like obsessively tracking calories or macros.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it can actually be a powerful tool for managing your weight and improving your overall health.
So I'm hearing you say that shifting our focus away from these trendy diets
Yeah,
and moving towards a more mindful approach to eating could be a game changer.
it really can be.
Yeah.
And it's something you can start practicing today no matter what you're eating.
So what stands out to you from all of this? Have you ever tried mindful eating yourself?
I have, and it's really changed my relationship with food. But I think we should continue exploring this idea of moving beyond trendy diets
Okay.
toward a more sustainable and enjoyable way of eating.
Okay, so how else can we build that healthy relationship with food? It seems like there's more to it than just like the act of eating itself.
You're absolutely right. It's essential to understand that food is not just about physical nourishment.
Okay.
It's also deeply connected to our emotions, our culture, and our social lives.
That's so true. Think about all those special occasions and celebrations that revolve around food.
Exactly.
Food brings people together.
It does. And denying ourselves the pleasure of food,
Yeah.
it can actually have a negative impact on our mental and emotional well-being.
So it's all about finding that sweet spot, right? Where we're nourishing our bodies with healthy foods,
Yes.
but also allowing ourselves to enjoy those special treats and indulgences without the guilt or shame.
Exactly. That's where balance and moderation come in.
It seems like those two words, balance and moderation, they're really the key to unlocking a healthy and sustainable approach to food.
I truly believe they are. And, it's not always easy to find that balance, especially in a world that's constantly bombarding us with messages about what we should and shouldn't eat.
It can be so overwhelming.
It really can.
It's no wonder people are drawn to these trendy diets that promise that quick and easy solution.
I know. But the truth is, there is no quick fix.
Right.
Building a healthy relationship with food is an ongoing journey, and it's unique to each individual.
It makes sense. So it's about tuning into your own body's needs and preferences.
Exactly.
Finding what works for you.
Yes. And it's about giving yourself grace and compassion along the way.
I love that grace and compassion, especially when it comes to something as personal as our relationship with food.
Absolutely.
We're all human. We're all going to have those slip-ups and challenges along the way.
Of course. We're not striving for perfection,
Right.
but for progress.
So it's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly.
Finding what works for you and your body and enjoying the process.
Absolutely.
This has been such an insightful conversation. I feel like I'm starting to see food in a whole new light.
That's wonderful to hear. And, this is just the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
There's so much more to explore when it comes to nutrition and well-being.
That's true. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's take a moment to recap some of the key takeaways from our discussion so far.
Okay. That sounds like a good plan.
Let's rewind and revisit those essential points.
Okay.
All right. Are you ready for a quick recap? Everyone grab your notebooks.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay, first things first, we debunked some of those popular diet trends.
Yes.
Like keto, gluten-free for those who don't need it, and juice cleanses.
Right.
We talked about how those trends often promise those quick fixes, but rarely deliver sustainable results.
Exactly.
And we emphasize the importance of focusing on a balanced and individualized approach to nutrition
Yes.
instead of just jumping on the bandwagon of every fad diet that comes along.
Absolutely.
We also discussed the mental and emotional aspects of dieting and how restrictive diets can lead to those feelings of guilt, shame, and even disordered eating.
That's right.
And we introduced the concept of mindful eating,
Yes.
which is all about paying attention to your body's cues and eating with intention and enjoyment.
That's it.
We explored the idea that food is not just about physical nourishment, but is also deeply connected to our emotions, our culture, our social lives.
Yes.
And we emphasized the importance of finding that balance and moderation in our eating habits, allowing ourselves to enjoy those special treats and indulgences without guilt or shame.
Exactly.
We also talked about the importance of giving ourselves grace and compassion along the way,
Yes.
recognizing that building a healthy relationship with food is an ongoing journey, not a destination.
Very well said.
That's a great summary. I feel like we covered a lot of ground in this episode.
We certainly did.
Yeah.
I hope you're feeling empowered to make informed choices about your nutrition and well-being.
Me too. So what's next on our agenda for this deep dive?
Well, I think it would be helpful to delve into some practical tips and strategies for building a healthy and sustainable approach to eating.
That sounds like a great plan. Let's dive into that in our next segment. Okay, so we've debunked those trendy diets. We talked about mindful eating. But let's get practical now. How can we actually build those healthy and sustainable eating habits?
You know, it's really about making those gradual changes and focusing on what you can add to your diet
Okay.
rather than what you need to restrict.
I like that.
Think about those colorful fruits and vegetables that often get forgotten.
Yeah, those are the ones that end up wilting in the back of my fridge.
Exactly. But they're nutritional powerhouses,
Oh.
packed with vitamins, minerals, antioxidants. Aim to fill half your plate with them at every meal.
Half my plate. Okay, I can try that. What about the other half?
Let's talk about whole grains.
Okay.
Unlike refined grains that have been stripped of their nutrients, whole grains, like brown rice, quinoa, oats,
Yeah.
they provide fiber, which is essential for digestion, keeping you feeling full and satisfied.
So instead of reaching for that white bread, I could try whole wheat
Exactly.
or experiment with quinoa instead of pasta. Yes.
I've been meaning to try more quinoa.
It's delicious.
Okay. And don't forget protein. It's so important for building and repairing tissues. It can help you stay full longer.
Absolutely. Lean protein sources like fish, chicken beans, lentils, tofu, all great options.
Okay, so we've got our colorful veggies, our whole grains, our lean protein.
Yeah.
That sounds like a delicious and balanced plate.
It does.
But let's be honest, life isn't always about, perfectly portioned meals.
Right.
What about those times when those, cravings hit?
Cravings are totally normal. Don't beat yourself up about them.
Okay, good.
Instead of trying to ignore them, find healthier ways to satisfy them.
Okay, give me some examples.
Let's say you're craving something sweet.
Yeah.
Instead of grabbing a candy bar, how about some Greek yogurt with berries and a drizzle of honey?
Ooh, that sounds good.
Or if you're in the mood for something salty and crunchy, try some air pop popcorn instead of potato chips.
I love
It's a
popcorn.
great alternative. Yeah, those are some great ideas. I like that.
Yeah.
It's about finding those healthier alternatives that still feel like a treat.
Exactly. It's not about deprivation. It's
Mhm.
about finding those swaps that you can enjoy.
Right, and remember, it's all about balance.
Right.
If you enjoy a treat every now and then, it's not a big deal.
No, not at all.
Just make sure those indulgences don't become a daily habit.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Just be mindful of it.
That makes sense. It's about finding that sweet spot where you can enjoy all foods in moderation.
Yes.
Which actually brings me to another question, portion sizes.
Okay.
I know I'm guilty of piling my plate high,
Yeah.
especially when I'm eating out.
We live in a world of supersize everything.
We do.
So it's so easy to overeat without even realizing it.
It is.
One helpful tip is to try using smaller plates and bowls at home.
Okay.
This can actually trick your brain into thinking you're eating more than you are.
Interesting.
And when you're eating out, consider sharing a meal with a friend
Huh?
or taking half of it home.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
Those are great strategies for being more mindful of how much we're actually consuming.
Yeah. And finally, let's talk about hydration.
Okay.
Drinking enough water is crucial for our bodies. And it can also help you feel full and satisfied, which can prevent overeating.
That makes sense. So how much water should we be aiming for each day?
It really varies depending on your individual needs, your activity level, but a good general guideline is to aim for 8 glasses a day.
8 glasses. I'm going to fill up my water bottle right now.
And remember, it doesn't have to be plain water.
Okay.
You can add slices of fruit, cucumber, mint. Infuse your water with flavor.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
Herbal teas are also a great way to stay hydrated.
So many great tips and reminders today. But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier
Yeah.
about giving ourselves grace and compassion on this journey.
It's so important. Building a healthy relationship with food is a marathon, not a sprint.
Right.
There will be times when you slip up, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Don't let those moments derail your progress.
Yeah, it's about progress, not perfection. Finding what works for you and your body.
Exactly.
Well, I think we've given our listeners plenty to think about and digest today.
We have.
It's been such a fascinating deep dive into the world of nutrition and healthy eating.
I agree.
Remember, You don't need those restrictive or trendy diets to feel your best.
You don't.
Focus on those simple, sustainable habits we talked about.
Yes,
And most importantly, be kind to yourself along the way.
absolutely.
If you have any questions or want some personalized guidance, reach out to a registered dietitian or nutritionist.
They could be a valuable resource on your journey to a healthier and happier you.
And as always, we'd love to hear from you. What resonated with you most today? What changes are you excited to try? Share your thoughts and experiences with us. Until next time, happy and healthy eating.